Live with studios in Midland and Odessa, you're watching CBS7 First Alert News at 9 on the CW West Texas.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for CBS7 News on the CW, and thanks to those of you who are joining us live on the CBS7 YouTube. I'm Lauren Munt and we start tonight tracking crime. Earlier this afternoon, Odessa police responded to the 3600 block of North Muskingum in response to 11 shots being fired. Upon arrival, they heard more shots being fired from someone's backyard. Texas DPS, the Ector County Sheriff's Office, and Odessa Police Department established a perimeter before this man, 35-year-old Saul Roman Galinda, exited the building and was taken into custody. The mug you see now is from a previous incident in 2022. Current charges are pending and the investigation is ongoing. We have a developing story for you now. The I-27 Numbering Act officially passed in the U.S. Senate and will now head to President Biden's desk. That act gives a name to the Port-to-Plains corridor from Laredo, Texas to Raton, New Mexico. Mayor Lori Blong traveled to the nation's capital to advocate for bringing part of the highway through Midland. The act doesn't designate any funding to the project, and construction is far off, but this starts the journey to those goals. Most importantly, the bill requires I-27 to come through Midland, Odessa, with the I-27 West designation that comes from Sterling City through Midland, Odessa to Lamesa. The Port-to-Plains corridor has connections beyond Texas.
I've spent the last several days in D.C. advocating for I-27 and for the Ports to Plains corridor, which goes from Del Rio and Presidio all the way up through Midland, Odessa, on to Lubbock and Amarillo and further north, extending all the way ultimately, hopefully, to North Dakota and to the Canadian border.
That allows the movement of goods while removing truck traffic from commuter roads in Midland and Odessa. The interstate designation also requires road improvements set to make roads safer. Portions of 349 and 158 will overlap with the I-27 route. And this week, the general election campaign kicked off in the earnest, with President Biden traveling to a key battleground state this afternoon. This comes as former President Trump is completing a takeover of the Republican establishment. Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
President Biden is taking his 2024 message on the road, speaking tonight in Pennsylvania, one of the states that decided the last presidential election.
Will you commit to a debate with former President Trump? It depends on his behavior.
Thursday night, the president delivered a fiery State of the Union address, previewing the campaign ahead.
Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today.
Without using his name, he referenced his likely 2024 challenger more than a dozen times, warning of threats at home and abroad.
Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote.
The current president and former will both hold dueling rallies in Georgia, another battleground state, on Saturday, ahead of the state's primary on Tuesday. Next week, former President Trump is poised to officially win the delegates needed to clinch the GOP nomination.
I'm stepping aside today.
Friday, Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel stepped down, paving the way for Trump loyalists, including his daughter-in-law, to be elected.
Winning the White House back is just too important for me to do otherwise. President Trump deserves to have the team he wants in place at the RNC.
The new leaders will try to close the significant fundraising gap. Records from February show the Biden campaign and DNC have roughly double the cash on hand compared to Trump's team and the RNC. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
The Biden campaign confirmed that it raised more in the 2 hours during the State of the Union speech Thursday night than it had during any 2-hour period since launching his campaign last April. The city of Midland, back here in West Texas, has announced the customer service center on Andrews Highway is closed because of bed bugs, I should say. According to a news release, the bugs were found on the second floor of the Center Point building. Officials report the building will be sprayed to get rid of the insects. Residents who need to pay their bill can do so by visiting the city's website. The building is expected to reopen on Monday. We're going to pause now and talk your weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Tom Tieferteller. Tom?
Well, we are seeing a quieter evening out there as that front is rolling in. Let's take a look at the radar. We did have some scattered showers, thunder showers, even across parts of the eastern Permian Basin. Nothing, though, I should say the western Permian Basin, nothing in the central and eastern Permian Basin. Again, you can see everything winding down as the sun set, and we lost any type of lift in the atmosphere. Taking a look at Pecos right now, we did have some thunder showers earlier. Now we're just lit up with 48 degrees. The mid to lower 40s across the Permian Basin right now, as the winds are still out of the north to northeast, gusting upwards to 30 miles an hour in a few spots, a little stronger out towards areas across the western Permian Basin and down towards the Dryden area at the present time. And what wind there is making it feel like it's into the 30s now across the Midland, Odessa area. We're on our way to a cold night. Looking at these hourly temperatures, they are going to be dropping down into the lower 30s to near freezing overnight tonight.
Thank you, Tom. February was another good month for job growth. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that was released on Friday shows that the country added 275,000 jobs last month, a surprising figure showing the economy's resilience. That surpassed expectations, and wages also increased by 0.1% on a monthly basis. Chair of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors, Jared Bernstein, says this job report is very positive.
You have a job market that defies expectations, coming in stronger than expected on the job side. Now, one of the things that happens when you have a long stretch of low unemployment, very strong job growth, and easing inflationary pressures, critical here from the perspective of families who need some breathing room. The president is focused on lowering costs. The combination of those factors leads to growing real wages, paychecks with more buying power, and that's what we've seen now running for a number of months in a row.
But it wasn't all good news. The unemployment rate did go up slightly by 0.2 of a point to 3.9%, the highest rate in 2 years. Here in the Permian Basin, the growth of jobs is being felt not just in the oil industry, but all across the board.
Oil and gas industry, construction side of it. If you drive around Midland, Odessa area, you see a lot of highway construction going on. So that construction industry, and that's not talking about the housing industry. Highway construction has been real strong in the region.
Right now, Midland has a 2.6% unemployment rate, while Odessa has a 3.5% unemployment rate, which combined is one of the best in the state. And it's not Wednesday, but Women Today still wore pink in honor of International Women's Day. To celebrate, the Permian Basin Association of Pipeliners hosted a luncheon to showcase women in energy.
International Women's Day!
The guest speaker of the event was Paula Wagner Aguilar, and she focused on how women are reshaping the energy sector, looking specifically at the past decade. At the height of the shale boom, women represented about 7.8% in the oil and gas industry, and that number has grown.
Women are somewhere between 25 to 26% of the workforce. In the case of oil and gas, women are somewhere in the range of somewhere between 22 and 25% of the workforce. And then in the case of power and renewables, they represent about 32% of the workforce.
No matter what sector you're looking at, women in the industry have increased by 17 to 24% in the last decade, with no signs of that growth stopping, especially not here in the Permian Basin. And the fight for women's rights is on display around the world as millions mark International Women's Day, like we just said. And some are spending the day in protests, others struggling through war. CBS's Tina Kraus reports from London.
Crowds of women clashed with police in the Philippines, demanding an end to sexual harassment in the country. Calls for gender equality and better pay echoed across Asia, the Middle East, and around the world as women rallied for global support. We work without any assurance, this woman says, for minimum wages and no overtime. Many women in France are celebrating this International Women's Day as the country becomes the first in the world to guarantee the right to abortion in its constitution.
For us, it's a fundamental right, and it has to be in the constitution because you can always change the law.
Young women in England are embracing a future Olympic sport, trying flag football for the first time, taking inspiration from NFL stars.
With today being some of these girls' first day, maybe some of them might be in the Olympics too.
But there's no sign of optimism in Gaza, with Palestinian women struggling to survive after months of the Israel-Hamas war. She says, my dream is to go back to my house, to my life, to wake up in the morning and be able to feed my children. And in Israel, mothers with daughters still held hostage say they're living hell on earth.
I'm focused on my decision that she will come home alive.
Heartfelt hope on a day designed to bring freedom to all women. Tina Krause, CBS News.
International Women's Day has been observed since the early 1900s, and the United Nations first recognized it in 1975. This year's theme is Inspire Inclusion.
Nice getting to see kids who don't really have the same opportunities as us get their opportunity to have just be a kid and have fun and see them smiling.
This week, Midland Christian students had the opportunity to serve their community through Missions Week by working with local nonprofits in Midland. Today, they hosted a Special Olympics event associated with Bynum School at the Midland Christian football field. The Bynum students were able to play several sports with the Midland Christian students in the Special Olympics event. The idea of Mission Week started when Midland Christian saw how much help local nonprofits in Midland needed. And the goal of Mission Week is for students to meet those needs.
Serving brings people great joy. It's a necessity to our life. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a lot of fun. These kids probably don't know it, but they probably bless us more than we bless them. And so it's a great experience.
This is the first time Midland Christian has done a full Missions Week. It used to just be Mission Day, but they plan to continue helping local nonprofits next year. And still ahead, a congressional committee took steps to ban TikTok in the United States. Why national security might be at stake up next. Congressional leaders are trying to force the hand of the company that owns TikTok. Our Washington correspondent Ryan Henson explains why this may be the beginning of the end for the social media platform in the United States.
In a vote of 50-0, the House Energy and Commerce Committee voted to force TikTok's parent company to either divest or risk being banned in America. The move that's united both sides of the aisle aims to address national security concerns. Lawmakers like Representative Tim Walberg does not believe TikTok executives are being square with him about data collected on the social media platform going to the Chinese government.
Can any of this information that's on the platform get to the CCP? And he said no. And he lied to me because we found out very quickly that it wasn't housed in some place in Virginia, but that ByteDance could supply it directly to the CCP, which did ask for it. That's our concerns.
As expected, users are furious. George Washington University professor Peter Loge explains TikTok could disappear from Americans over a question of ownership, not freedom of speech.
One argument is that this is not a violation of the First Amendment because Congress isn't trying to ban content. What they're trying to do is limit who can own media outlets in the U.S. But the argument in favor of it violating the First Amendment is, of course, that if people don't have the means by which to get their message or their opinions out, then the First Amendment doesn't mean anything. So for the First Amendment to be meaningful, there have to be outlets like TikTok. I think this is one for the courts.
Even if lawmakers succeed in shuttering TikTok, Loge believes the concept will return.
If TikTok somehow is shut down, an enterprising entrepreneur will look around and say, hey, there's this huge market for this cool thing, a short clip video service. But the idea of content creators, people sharing information, making political points, dancing, entertaining their friends, and showing cute puppies, that's not going anywhere.
The bill's name is longer than most TikToks, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. And the next step is a full floor vote in the House as early as next week. Reporting in Washington, I'm Ryan Henson.
Well, we are going to be looking at quieter conditions this weekend as things are going to be a little bit chilly. We'll talk about how long this is going to last coming up next.
Now, from the CBS7 First Alert Weather Center, here's Chief Meteorologist Tom Tiefertiller.
Well, if you have stepped outside this evening, you know it's a chilly one out there. Gusty north and northeast winds helping drop temperatures. Wind chill values down into the 30s. Currently, it's right at 44 degrees. From Midland, 43 out of the Middle National Air and Spaceport, and 44 in Odessa. You can see the effects of that front making its way all the way down even into the mountain areas where the front is just now arriving. being propelled by gusty north and northeast winds upwards to 30 miles an hour in gust at the present time, as everything is pushing off to the south and southwest. Here's what we are looking at. We are seeing that we do have relatively quiet conditions right now across the state of Texas. The showers, thunder showers have moved out as this big trough moves across. Some drier air trying to filter in, so that's going to make for quiet conditions this weekend. Right now across the state of Texas, most of the showers we had back in West Texas have ended for tonight. Still a little bit of snow across portions of the Texas Panhandle, and the showers, even a few thunder showers, pick up over towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area and heading off to the east as that front is really pushing through the state right now, and chilly conditions behind it. In fact, we're already down to 30 in Amarillo, 37 in Lubbock. That's headed our way, making for a cold start to your weekend. 48 in the Dallas area, but look at those temperatures into the 60s and 70s across the southern half of the state. West Texas Futurecast showing not much happening here over the next 24 hours as we'll wake up with some clearing skies, and that'll continue to be the case tomorrow as we'll see a few high clouds. Trans-Pecos Mountain area is really about it. So for tonight, here's what we're looking at. Again, temperatures touching freezing in a few parts of the northern Permian Basin. Hobbs down to 28 degrees, 29 in Marfa. And then for tomorrow, not too bad a day. Probably need a light jacket, though, with temperatures into the mid-50s for the afternoon highs. We're still going to carry that north and northeast wind. Your CBS 7 First Alert exclusive 10-day forecast showing you that for the first day of daylight saving time, we're going to see temperatures around 63 degrees and really a quiet start to the week before we see another little bit of a warm up middle part of next week. Another cold front on the way. But again, this weekend, it's going to be a nice return to winter in our forecast.
Still ahead, Social Security scams are on the rise again. Signs for how you can avoid them up next. The Social Security Administration wants Americans to be on the lookout for government imposters. According to the Federal Trade Commission, Americans lost more than $126 million to Social Security scammers last year. The fraudsters often contact victims by phone, text, or social media to get sensitive personal information. And now some are using AI deepfakes to trick people. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger shared tips for protecting yourself.
If you feel yourself getting a little agitated, breathe and really take a deep breath and say, wait a second, I'm going to disengage from this.
Okay.
Because either you're going to hang up the phone, do not click on any links, do not give any of your personal information. Guard this so closely. This is really important. Don't give anyone your information.
It's important to note the Social Security Administration will not issue threats, send messages on social media, demand secrecy, or suspend your Social Security number. Still ahead, happy International Women's Day, and one woman just set a new world record in the coldest place on Earth. We've got the details next. Before we go, 10,000 steps in a day might be good enough for the average person, but not for Donna Curehart. I think I'm saying that right. She just finished 871 miles in 28 days in a bitter cold climate. The Australian is an ultra-marathon runner and a self-described pain scientist who just set the new Guinness World Record for the longest polar ultra marathon. That is crazy. Tom, I don't even like walking from my door to my car in the cold.
10,000 steps a week, maybe, okay?
I'm very impressed by that. That's a cool picture, too. She ran 30 miles per day in below zero temperatures and gusty winds during her quest, which she calls Run Antarctica. She says the goal of Run Antarctica is to help embolden females to get into sports, and she's run more than 50 ultramarathons so far. That's impressive.
That is.
That's really impressive. Like I said, I am a wimp when it comes to the cold. That is my biggest.
I wonder exactly where that was in Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's the geography person in me, but I'm just amazed at doing that, and especially that distance that most people would have trouble doing that.
Would you do it?
Oh no.
No, you're good.
Especially not in that cold.
I mean, people could do it in the West Texas cold this weekend, right?
That's right. You know, it's not summer in Antarctica, but it's It'll be a little chilly, a little more seasonable out there. Highs tomorrow only 55 degrees. Plenty of sun mixed in with a couple of clouds in our forecast.
All right, well, I will be bundled up. Thanks for joining us for CBS 7 News at 9.